Well, with travel restrictions beginning to ease, some people are still turning to their local lakes and waterways for a summer getaway. If you plan on renting a boat, boating insurance, not mandatory in Ontario, which may be an issue if there is an injury. To explain more is Nainish Kotak from Kotak Law. Thanks for joining us this morning. Boating insurance not mandatory. Why? It's a vehicle like a car.
Yeah, you would think something needs to change with respect to that, Bob. Some marinas, in fact, most probably do require it because there's a chance of obvious property damage that could occur. But again, it's not mandatory. And we know even last year, there was such a dramatic increase in boating, sale of boats in addition to rentals. And there's some very experienced boaters out there, obviously. There are those who are just sort of starting out. And we know sometimes there's a bit of a mix of alcohol. You're not supposed to drink on a boat, and accidents can happen. And without insurance, if there were occupants of two boats who didn't have insurance, there'd be no coverage in terms of trying to, collect for your health care, collect for damage and income loss. So it is important I think, to purchase boat insurance and make sure when you do that, you actually purchase the uninsured and underinsured coverage, so that if you're in an accident with a boater who's not insured, your boat insurance will in fact cover you for your injuries, because homeowners policies will be nowhere sufficient.
Well, we're actually thinking of you. That's what prompted this discussion, because there's the high-profile case of Shark Tank star Kevin O'Leary and his wife Linda and that tragic accident in Muskoka. And this was a case that left two dead. And in the case of, we're not saying that's the case with this trial, but if that other boat was uninsured, the victims need the aforementioned insurance on their own boat.
Absolutely. A very tragic case, and you've got a situation where occupants of both boats are suing each other. And under the Marine Liability Act, there's a $1 million limit for all claims per accident, and each side claimed above the $1 million. And the only time courts will award that is if you can establish recklessness. So you're correct. It's a very unfortunate situation. He said, she said. And unfortunately, there were tragic consequences. And it shows, there are, it's a lot of fun, obviously, to be on a boat. I've been on a boat many times, but there are risks involved, and it's obviously to obey safety laws in terms of lighting and also in the operation of the craft, and to have the appropriate insurance for the circumstances.
And this is under federal purview. It's Transport Canada, of course, that regulates this. So there is a limit to claims.
Yes, there is, the Marine Liability Act, to $1 million, no matter how many people were in that vessel claiming. And again, as I said, courts have put that aside if there's been recklessness, but the statute is pretty clear. In fact, what's happened in the O'Leary case is both sides, the families of the deceased and those who are injured, have claimed over and above the $1 million, and each is trying to limit one another's claim to that $1 million amount set out in the Marine Liability Act.
Liability coverage, what does it cover? Because this was a tragic loss of life, but I would imagine property damage is quite common with boating accidents.
Yeah, you'd want to obviously have enough to cover your own property damage, and in addition to any claims. For example, if you hit a dock, there may be claims for that as well, and enough coverage for liability if somebody is injured or hurt, and underinsured or uninsured coverage in the event that you're in an accident with a vessel that didn't have insurance itself.
Yeah. So, just a couple of seconds left, but do you see this changing regarding insurance being mandatory for boats?
I think it will. It's sort of a loophole there, but I certainly think it will, and particularly this case sort of brings it to light.
Right.
And again, the practical reality is if you're docking your boat at a marina, often they do require you to have insurance with specific limits anyway.
Right.
So, and even the renters, the hope is that when you're renting a boat, whoever's renting it will have insurance, or in fact require you to purchase extra coverage similar as you would in a rental car. But again, there are loopholes to this, and hopefully it'll get closed.
Yeah. Well, more information and great advice as always from Kotak Law. We'll link up your website at chch.com for more information. Nainish Kotak, good to see you.
Good to see you, Bob. Thank you for having me.